Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, November 11th, 2021. I'm Jolie Salee, and this is News OSU. Rarely basketball will take the college sports spotlight in the middle of a football season, but this week it does. Oklahoma State's men's basketball team received some devastating news less than a week before their regular season. Oklahoma State found out last Tuesday they would be ineligible for postseason play. That includes the NCAA tournament that they just played 1 year ago. Later in sports, Michael Zerales will share more information on this story. Outside the world of sports, the Stillwater community has experienced a wind down this week, as last week the town was full of alumni as OSU celebrated its 100th homecoming. The city of Stillwater welcomed thousands of alumni and friends of the university for all of the celebrations. Reporter Channing Nesmith took to the streets of Stillwater Friday night to figure out more about OSU's unique homecoming traditions. Walk around.
OSU is known for America's greatest homecoming. One tradition that brings people back to Stillwater every year is the walk around. With this year being OSU's 100th year of homecoming, let's take a look back to see where it all began.
The first Alumni Association hosted homecoming took place in 1920. And that's why we celebrated the centennial this year.
In the 1920s, sororities would decorate the house's doors and fraternities decorated the OSU residential halls. Since then, fraternities and sororities pair together to create decks that are larger and more elaborate. The decks are in front of the Greek houses and they are made from chicken wire and tissue paper.
In 1966 is the first time they actually closed the streets so that people could walk around, and that is where the name walk around came from.
Carter says about 80,000 people show up to the walk around every year. Although alumni, parents, locals, and students enjoy the walk around, OSU Homecoming is a student-ran event.
The students put so much time and effort into the Greek and residential hall decorations. They really kind of make it their own, and I think that helps them appreciate it even more as graduates when they come back and visit.
Some students come back for walk around after graduation, and some grow up coming to OSU Homecoming.
I've been coming to homecoming for the last 18 years, but this year is my first year to prom. And something that just keeps me coming back to OSU is just the tradition. My dad was Pistol Pete.
William's dad, Preston, was Pistol Pete in 1998. After her parents graduated, their family tradition of attending walk-around began. For News OSU, I'm Channing Nesmith.
Thank you, Channing. Walk-around is just one of the many unique homecoming traditions that Cowboys got to experience again after a year off. Homecoming is more than just an OSU event. It affects every single aspect of life in Stillwater, from residents to businesses. With the cancellation of homecoming last year and the centennial celebration this year, the question of financial repercussions on the community is bound to arise. Reporter Devin Schwetman sought out answers to that question with Stillwater community leaders.
Oklahoma State University's homecoming is hands down the biggest moneymaker for Stillwater, bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. But with 2020 shutting down the festivities, what happened to Stillwater's budget and businesses?
It's calling about 200 businesses every week to say, are you open? How are you doing business? Are you delivering curbside service? Do you have gift cards? And we were so good about communicating to our local community the importance of doing business with your local small businesses that really sales tax didn't take a huge dip.
As interesting as it is that there was a rise in profits overall, there were some sectors that struggled without the homecoming buffer.
The hotels were devastated, of course.
Nevertheless, Stillwater is a town full of people who persevere. Despite the struggles and compromises made in the past 2 years, business continues to grow in Stillwater.
Any increase is a good increase. And so obviously hotel, Airbnb, they're full, right? So they're gonna have a heck of a weekend. Restaurants, bars, retailers along campus, they're gonna be okay. I really don't think that it's gonna be a down. Even with only 80,000 or so coming in for homecoming, that's still, 1.5 times the size of our community. In general.
Homecoming holds a very special place in Stillwater's hearts and pockets. By supporting homecoming, we support our home and its future. For News OSU, I'm Devin Schwetman.
Homecoming is just one of the events that affects the finances in Stillwater each year. It sits alongside students feeling the city of Stillwater to return home for the holiday season. Stillwater will lose 25,000 members of its community, which is 35,000 money spenders this holiday season. As Channing Nesmith tells us, local business plan and prepare for the cold season.
This year marked OSU's 100th year of homecoming. On average, about 80,000 people attend the walk-around every year, almost doubling the Stillwater population and quadrupling the OSU student population. I sat down with several business owners to learn more about what to expect for the winter season.
We have a lot of locals that will shop with us over the holidays.
MacDonald says after graduation, Chris's university spirit stays busy. He says they will have many online orders along with locals who come in to shop for Christmas gifts.
Our business is emotional, so if OSU is doing good in football and we go to a great playoff game or bowl game, we're always preparing for that next step.
Just as Chris's university spirit prepares for its next steps, so does Peck's Lodge.
I always do a lot of business homecoming, but just as much as every football week.
This semester is coming to an end and local businesses feel prepared for the winter season.
Then you've got more of the local population that's more out. I think they tend to come shop this area more so when school's out.
Once the holiday season is over, the bowl games begin.
We'll be busy up until that point, and then even after that.
With a new year approaching, local businesses reflect on the pandemic.
You know, after last year with COVID, when business dropped in half, it was a really big challenge for me to see if I could make it come back just even stronger.
Scroggs says that October was the best month for business that he has had in the past 3 or 4 years. Chris's university spirit has also seen a large change for the better this past year. MacDonald and his team look into 2022 with one thing in mind.
Just normal, whatever that means. I feel like this year has definitely been better than last year.
Being a local business can be challenging at times, but Scroggs says at the end of the day,
you're part of the community, you get involved, I've made a lot of friends or acquaintances in Stillwater.
For News OSU, I'm Channing Nesmith.
Thank you, Channing. Stillwater sure does feel like a different place when students leave for breaks. With that being said, not all OSU students leave for breaks. Whether it's an international student not able to afford a ticket overseas, or a student who just does not think it's in their plans this season. Many choose to stay in town. The holiday presents a challenge for many people. Should they go home to spend a holiday with the people they may not have a good relationship with, or should they strike it out on their own? In a world where divisions are rising, people may make the choice to stop seeing family and spend the holiday alone or with friends instead. Devin Schwetman shares more.
The pandemic ground life to a halt in 2020. With the world returning to normal comes the return of going home for the holidays. But what happens when there doesn't feel like a home or a normal to return to?
I think that there's a difference in people's maybe openness and defensiveness too. But that's also because people are setting boundaries maybe that weren't set before. So I think it could be a good growing point for us, or it could be a big challenge.
For some people, the pandemic and political tension has done enough damage that will take years to heal, both physical and psychological, emotional, mental health, all.
Thanksgiving and the holidays that follow are known as the time when we all come together over friendly bickering and tasty food. However, in a world where every little thing sparks rage, those days may be something of the past for some people. For those who don't want to go home, there's a big hurdle to overcome. How to say no. Do you lie? Ghost? Say you've already made other plans? In a world where saying no to family is frowned upon, any of these answers may feel like betrayal.
I like the idea and promote the idea of just being honest if you're able. We have other things that day, or that's not going to work for us this year.
Remember, regardless of whether or not you choose to go home this holiday season, treating yourself and others with respect is more important than any temporarily hurt feelings. For News OSU, I'm Devin Schwetman.
Thanks, Devin. It is important to remember that every student comes from a different background. With the holidays approaching, so is the cold weather. Here is the week's news OSU weather forecast. The high today is 65 degrees with a low of 41. Friday has a high of 57 with a low of 31. Saturday, which is a Cowboy football game day, has a high of 61 with a low of 41. Sunday is a high of 64 and a low of 38. Oklahoma is known to have some of the highest incarceration rates in the U.S. In 2016 alone, Oklahoma voters passed 2 state questions in order to lower this rate. These bills instructed the state to figure out how much it saved from incarcerating less people and send that amount to counties to treat the root cause of crime by increasing funding for rehabilitative service for drug and mental health. However, this funding has yet to happen. I found out more on how this is affecting Oklahoma counties. Oklahoma's justice reform movement has made significant headway toward reducing the state's extremely high incarceration rate over the last several years. On Election Day in 2016, Oklahoma voters enacted State Questions 780 and 781. Simple drug possession and many property-related crimes were reduced to a misdemeanor. State Questions 780 and 781 were designed to reduce spending on prisons and invest those savings into treatment services for things like substance abuse and mental illness.
If you complete the program successfully and you graduate, your charges are dismissed.
By passing these bills, voters opted for treatment over prison to provide funding for these substance abuse programs. At least that was the plan.
The referendum that was voted on was grossly misrepresented to the voters of Oklahoma. It was supposed to increase funding for some of these programs.
We haven't seen an increase.
I was going to say I would like to know.
Our funding's actually been decreased.
Yeah, where's the money?
The funding for rehabilitative services to address substance abuse was to be budgeted and expended by the Office of Management and Enterprise Services. By all accounts, this was a failure. The OMES inflated how many felons were averted. This resulted in no budgeting or funding, forcing judges and prosecutors to find alternatives at the local level.
It's still a requirement to have a felony to get into drug court. Well, when you have all of these felonies that are falling from drugs, the state's not going to increase your funding for your drug court. They're going to start reducing that because participation in felony drug court is lessening. So you can't.
All 77 Oklahoma counties, which stand to gain some amount of money to help their local citizens with addiction, are still waiting for the state to get its act together. The exact formula for how the money will be allocated, including how a county's size and population will be factored in, is yet to be determined. For News OSU, I'm Jolie Salee. Speaking of numbers, Oklahomans hope to see decrease rather than increase. Here is a look at last week's Oklahoma State University Health Services COVID-19 dashboard. There were 38 positive cases. This includes both cases that were self-reported and those tested at University Health Services. UHS performed 425 last week. Oklahoma State University Health Services is now offering the booster shot to all community members that are eligible. Oklahoma State's University Health Services says that faculty, staff, students, and dependents within the university community are now eligible to receive a booster at UHS. They're offering Pfizer, and it is only available to those who previously received the Pfizer vaccine. Those wanting to schedule an appointment can go through their patient portal or call the 405-744-7665 during regular business hours.
The Oklahoma State football team is 8-1 and ranked number 10 in the most recent college football playoff rankings, and we'll get to that with Dallas Haggerty's report from Morgantown. But today we must start with some news that has shocked all of the college basketball world. With just under a week to go before the tip-off to a college basketball season, the Oklahoma State men's basketball team received some devastating news. The Cowboys would not be eligible for the postseason because of an FBI probe and investigation that found Lamont Evans accepted roughly $20,000 in bribes from agencies as an assistant with the Cowboys before he was arrested and fired. The NCAA's only piece of evidence in its investigation of any rule breaking by OSU was proof of Evans being involved in a $300 payment to former Oklahoma State senior Jeffrey Carroll who later paid back the money and served a 3-game suspension during the 2018-19 season. Head coach Mike Boynton named every member of the NCAA Infractions Committee and NCAA Appeals Committee before relaying the message to the people that made his team ineligible for the NCAA tournament.
They slept well last night. They felt good about the work they did. While I explained to 17 kids that their dreams of playing in the NCAA tournament this year couldn't be realized.
And Coach Mike Boynton was not the only member of the Oklahoma State Athletic Department with strong words for the NCAA Athletic Director. Athletic Director Chad Weiberg also called out the NCAA in his press conference.
And is further proof that the NCAA system is disconnected and broken. Deep and drastic changes are needed to create a better, more consistent, and fairer model.
Oklahoma State played an exhibition game a week ago Friday. After the win, Isaac Likely and Rondell Walker sat down to talk to the media with every member of the Oklahoma State basketball team behind them. Likely says he and his teammates can still make history.
Let's just go out there and win, and then I feel like we'll be remembered forever. You know, a team that could, you know, if that's our ceiling, winning the Big 12 championship, regular season championship, and not making the tournament, not being in the tournament, I feel like stuff like that would be historically remembered, you know, forever for Oklahoma State. And that's what everybody here to do. Everybody came here to make history in some kind of way.
The Cowboys opened up their regular season with an 88-45 win over the University of Texas Arlington. Memphis transfer Musa Cisse led the way with 17 points and 9 rebounds. The Cowboys will be back in action Friday, hosting Oakland at 7 p.m. in Gallagher-Iba Arena. The Cowboy football team traveled to Morgantown for a meeting with West Virginia last Saturday. Dallas Haggerty made the 15-hour drive to Morgantown and has more from the sidelines.
The Cowboys did it again with a 24-3 commanding victory over the West Virginia Mountaineers on the strength of 2 huge touchdowns from Tay Martin in the corner of this very end zone. What's next for the Cowboys? They head home to take on TCU in a blackout for Week 11. We'll be there and we will have you covered.
Fall is in full swing and the Cowboys are firing on all cylinders when it matters most. Teams and coaches alike are quickly realizing the Pokes are for real and are settling in for the race to the top. The stretch of the season that many anticipated would be a rough patch for the Pokes has been quite the opposite. The Pokes have once again landed a ranking in the top 10 heading into Week 11 with 1 blemish on the record. Their most recent victory came in a dominating fashion, defeating West Virginia 24-3 in a historical showing. The Pokes defense recorded 8 sacks, making their presence felt throughout Mountaineer Stadium. The 8-sack performance stands as the second most in a game in school history and the most since the 2004 season. In OSU's last 2 games, the defense has held consecutive conference opponents to only 3 points. This is the first time since 1948 and 1949 that OSU has done so.
A good week of practice with our players and visited with them about staying with what has got them to this point, you know, which is being humble, unselfish, focused, discipline, and toughness. Very, very simple.
To capitalize on the defensive effort, the Pokes offense has turned a noticeable corner as well.
We're trying to take steps to be better and better.
The Pokes look to continue to keep pace in the Big 12 race as well as on the national stage. A victory in front of 60,000 Saturday night would do just that. For News OSU, I'm Dallas Haggerty.
Thanks, Dallas. Cowboy fans will be participating in a blackout of Boone Pickens Stadium Saturday night when they host TCU. Let's take a look at what the Cowboys have left in their pursuit of a Big 12 championship. It's November and Stillwater is buzzing because the Cowboys control their own destiny heading into their last 3 games of the regular season. The formula is simple. Win the next 3 games and the 4th one will be in Jerry's World for a conference championship. If the Cowboys can run the table and win all 4 games, it would be almost impossible to see a scenario where the College Football Playoff Committee keeps the Cowboys out of the College Football Playoff. That being said, the Cowboys must stay focused on the task at hand, and that is TCU this Saturday at 7 p.m. on Fox. We'll be at Boone Pickens Stadium and have more from the sidelines.
Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and see you next week. For News OSU, I'm Jolie Salee.